They still talk about the day I went to fetch one boy and came home with 10 children. Mrs. Patterson tells new arrivals I was touched by God. Mr. Chen says I was touched in the head. Both were right. But that March morning in 1886, I was just a widow measuring flour, 2 cups for bread, half a cup held back for gravy if we were lucky enough for meat. I'd learned to measure everything in the 5 years since Thomas died. Firewood by the stick, eggs by the dozen we could spare for selling versus the few we kept for eating. Even hope, I rationed that most carefully of all. My daughter Sarah sat across from me at our kitchen table, swinging her legs that didn't yet reach the floor. 8 years old and already learning the arithmetic of survival. She knew better than to ask for butter on her bread, knew we saved the butter for selling. "Mama," she said, pushing crumbs around her plate. "Jenny Morrison got a kitten." I didn't look up from my mending. A kitten meant scraps for feeding, meant milk diverted from our own mouths. "That's nice for Jenny." The silence that followed felt heavy. When had I become the kind of mother who crushed small joys under the weight of practicality? The knock came while I was clearing our 2 plates, always 2, never more, never less. The postman handed me an envelope with the Children's Aid Society seal. I knew what it was before I opened it. Half the widows in Indiana had received the same letter. They needed farm families for orphan placement. Children from New York, Philadelphia, Boston, cities choked with orphans after the war, after the factories, after all the ways the world found to make children alone. 1 boy per family, they suggested, age 12 to 14, strong enough for farm work. I read it twice while Sarah watched me with those eyes that saw too much. "What is it, Mama?" "Nothing, sweetheart. Go gather the eggs." After she left, I stood at my kitchen window looking at our farm. 20 acres my husband left me. Good land, but too much for 1 woman and a child to manage alone. We grew enough to survive, but not enough to thrive. The fence line needed mending. The barn roof wanted patching. The north field lay fallow because I couldn't work it and everything else. A boy would help. That was simple mathematics. His labor in exchange for food and a bed. Practical. Fair. Not charity, an arrangement. I told myself it was only that. Not loneliness. Not the ache of this house that felt too quiet since Thomas died. Not the way Sarah asked about kittens because she was hungry for something, anything, beyond our careful, measured, small existence. That night, after Sarah slept, I sat at the table with ink and paper. My handwriting looked different than it used to. Harder, more angular, like me. "I can provide room and board for 1 boy," I wrote. "Age 12 to 14 preferred. Strong constitution required for farm work. I have room for 1. I sealed it before I could change my mind, before I could admit that what I really needed wasn't another pair of hands. What I needed was proof that my heart wasn't as measured and rationed as everything else in my life. But I only had room for 1. The week before the train arrived, I prepared the attic room, swept out dust that had settled there since Thomas died, since I'd stopped climbing those stairs because the empty space made me ache. I found his old work shirts in a trunk, held them to my face before I could stop myself. They didn't smell like him anymore, just cedar and thyme. I made up the narrow bed with our spare blanket, set out a basin for washing. The room was small but clean, sufficient. That was the word I'd learned to live by, sufficient. At the mercantile, I bought 1 extra plate, blue ceramic, nothing like our other dishes. Mr. Chen wrapped it carefully while his wife watched me from behind the counter. "Taking in an orphan boy," Mrs. Chen said. It wasn't a question. 1 boy, for farm help. Very sensible, Evelyn. She said it like she was surprised I'd do anything sensible, like the whole town still whispered about how I'd refused to sell the farm after Thomas died, how I'd stayed when everyone said I should go back east to my people. What people? My mother died when I was 7. My father remarried and forgot he had a daughter. Thomas was my people. This farm was my people. Sarah and I were making our own people now. I bought 1 set of work clothes, too. Pants and a shirt for a boy around 12. The kind who could handle a plow and wouldn't complain about calluses. Sarah bounced beside me all the way home. When does he come, Mama? What's his name? Will he like me? Saturday. I don't know his name yet, and of course he'll like you. Will he be like having a brother? I looked down at her hopeful face. When had she gotten so lonely? I'd been so busy surviving, I hadn't noticed my daughter was slowly disappearing into the same careful, quiet life I'd built. Maybe something like that, I said softly. That night, lying in bed, I let myself remember. I was 7 when Mama died, scarlet fever. They took her body and left me standing in the doorway of our boarding house, not understanding why she wouldn't wake up. My father found me there 3 hours later, still waiting. He remarried within 6 months. My stepmother had her own children. I became the extra mouth, the reminder of his first wife. By 10, I was working in a factory. By 15, I met Thomas, gentle Thomas, who asked me what I dreamed about and actually listened to the answer. He gave me this farm, this life, the possibility of permanence. I'd been so afraid of needing anything after he died. Need meant disappointment, need meant loss. But this boy, this was practical need, mathematics. I could handle that. Saturday came cold and bright. Sarah wore her Sunday dress even though I told her it wasn't necessary. I'd practiced my speech. Welcome, you'll work hard but eat well. We're fair people. Fair, not loving, not warm. Fair. The train station smelled of coal smoke and crowds. Other families waited too. Farmers looking for help, childless couples hoping for sons or daughters. I held Sarah's hand tight and waited for the train to arrive. When the whistle sounded in the distance, I squeezed her fingers. Remember, just one boy, we have room for one. The words felt like a prayer, or maybe a warning. I didn't know yet that I was about to break every careful measurement I'd spent 5 years constructing. The train exhaled steam and noise. And then they came. Not one boy, 10 children. They descended in a line, oldest to youngest, holding hands like paper dolls cut from the same sheet of sorrow. The eldest, a girl around 14, stood at the front, her face set hard against whatever was coming. Behind her, 9 others. The youngest couldn't have been more than 3, clutching the skirt of the girl in front of her. Siblings, you could see it in the way they moved together. The way the older ones positioned themselves around the younger ones. Protection formed from practice. Mrs. Thornton from the Children's Aid Society stood beside them, her face pinched with professional sympathy. She began her speech about grateful children and Christian duty, but I wasn't listening. I was counting. 10 children holding hands like they could keep each other safe through sheer determination. These are the Murphy siblings, Mrs. Thornton was saying. Unfortunately, it's quite rare for families to take more than 1 or 2 children. We'll be placing them across 3 states, Illinois, Iowa, and Missouri. They understand they won't be together, but they'll each have homes. She spread a map on the platform. Red lines showed the separations. Emma, the oldest, would go to a farm in Iowa, the 3 youngest to a family in Missouri, the middle children scattered across Illinois like seeds thrown to the wind. They'd never see each other again. I watched Emma's hand tighten on the shoulder of the boy beside her, maybe 12, standing straight like a little soldier. Watched the middle ones, twin girls around 7, gripping each other's fingers white-knuckled. Watched the smallest one, Mary, looking up at Emma with absolute trust. I want Emmy, Mary whispered. Just that, not loud, not a tantrum, a quiet statement of impossible want. Emma's jaw clenched. She was trying not to cry. Trying to be strong for the 9 others depending on her strength. I knew that face. I'd worn it every day since Thomas died. Something cracked open in my chest. Not gentle, like ice breaking on the creek, sharp and sudden and dangerous. I saw myself at 7, standing in that boarding house doorway. Saw Sarah growing up, learning to want nothing. Saw these 10 children being taught that love was something you had to surrender to survive. I'll take them all. The words came out before I knew I was going to say them, before my practical mind could calculate the impossibility, before fear could stop me. Silence fell across the platform. Mrs. Thornton stared at me like I'd started speaking in tongues. "I'm sorry, what?" "I'll take them all 10. "Mrs. Bradford, that's not possible. 10 children? One woman alone?" "I'm not asking permission. I'm telling you. I'll take them all." The other families waiting for children were staring now. Sarah was looking up at me with her mouth open. Mrs. Thornton was sputtering about resources and reason and responsibility. But Emma was looking at me with something I hadn't seen in 5 years. Hope. Terrible, beautiful, dangerous hope. "They stay together," I said firmly. "That's not negotiable." Mrs. Thornton tried to argue, tried to explain that I had no idea what I was taking on, tried to talk sense into me. She was right. I had no idea. My house barely fit 3 people. My budget barely fed 2. I had $12 in savings and half a winter's worth of firewood and absolutely no plan for how to make this work. But I looked at those 10 hands linked together and I thought, the only thing that will be divided here is my old life from whatever comes next. "Come on," I said to the children. "We're going home." The walk back from the station felt endless. 10 children following me through the mud like a parade of impossibility. The town watching from windows and doorways. Sarah walking beside me in shocked silence. I didn't look at anyone, didn't let myself think. Just put one foot in front of the other until we reached my small house sitting there under the gray sky. Looking exactly as insufficient as it was, I opened the door, looked at the kitchen that barely held our table, the 2 bedrooms and the attic, the hearth where I cooked for 2. "Come in," I said. "We'll make it fit." Behind me, I heard Emma whisper to the others, "Stay together. Don't touch anything. Be good." My heart cracked a little more. These children had learned to make themselves small, to take up as little space as possible. I turned around and looked at all 10 of them crowded in my doorway, afraid to enter. "In my house," I said quietly, "you're allowed to take up space." We'd figure out the rest, or we'd fail together. Either way, they wouldn't be alone. I lost track of time somewhere around the 3rd day. The hours blurred into a constant stream of cooking, cleaning, crisis management, and counting heads. Always counting heads. 10 small bodies that needed feeding, clothing, washing, watching. I counted them in the morning when they woke tangled together on every available floor space. We didn't have enough beds, so they'd made nests of blankets and each other. I counted them at meals. I counted them at night before I collapsed into my own bed for 2 hours of sleep before the youngest one had a nightmare and I was up again. My careful arithmetic had become chaos mathematics. How do you divide 2 loaves of bread among 11 people? How do you stretch 1 pot of soup? How do you wash 11 bodies with 1 tub and limited firewood? You don't. You improvise. You fail. You try again. Emma took over breakfast on the 2nd day, just appeared at the hearth while I was crying over the last cup of flour, and said quietly, "I can make Johnny cakes, ma'am. Learned at the last house." The last house. I didn't ask what happened there. The fact that she was on an orphan train told me enough. James, the 12-year-old soldier boy, organized the older children into a farm work rotation. He'd done farm work before, knew crops and animals and responsibility. He asked permission for everything with heartbreaking politeness. "Ma'am, may we fix that fence?" "Ma'am, the cow needs milking." "Ma'am, what should we do with the chickens?" I wanted to tell him to stop calling me ma'am, like I was some kind of employer. Wanted to tell him he didn't need to ask permission to exist. But I was so tired. And their help was the only thing keeping us from complete disaster. The middle children, twins Clara and Catherine, the 9-year-old boy Peter, the 8-year-old girl Ruth, 6-year-old twins Michael and Margaret, followed the older one's lead, quiet as mice, helpful as little adults. Too good, too careful, too afraid of being sent back. And Mary, 3 years old and mostly mute except for Emmy and scared. She attached herself to my skirt the first day and never let go. Everywhere I went, there she was, silent and watchful and trusting me to not disappear. By day 4, I was sitting on the kitchen floor, crying over an empty flour sack when Sarah sat down beside me. "Mama, you haven't smiled in 6 days. 6 days. It felt like years, decades, like I'd aged into an old woman in less than a week. "I'm fine, sweetheart." "You're not fine. You're scared." I looked at my daughter. When had she learned to see through me so clearly? "Yes, I'm scared." "Are you going to send them back?" The question hit me like a fist. No, never. I promised them they'd stay together. "Then we'll figure it out." Simple, the faith of children. We'll figure it out. That night, Emma appeared with bread she'd made from scraps I didn't even know we had, set it on the table without a word. The other children gathered, and we divided it into 12 pieces, tiny pieces, but 12. "We're good at managing, ma'am," Emma said quietly. "We've had to be." I looked at these 10 children who'd survived things I couldn't imagine, who'd learned to make much from nothing, who were trying to help me save them even while they were drowning. "My name is Evelyn," I said. "Not ma'am, Evelyn. And we're a family now. Families use names." Emma's eyes filled with tears. She nodded once, quick, before turning away. That night, I managed 3 hours of sleep before Mary's nightmare woke us all. But when I rushed to comfort her, 6 other children were already there, surrounding her with whispered reassurances and gentle hands. They'd been taking care of each other long before I arrived. Maybe, just maybe, they could teach me how to let them help me take care of them. Sunday came too fast. I spent Saturday night trying to make 11 children presentable for church, washing faces, mending torn hems, braiding hair. Emma helped with the younger ones while I worked on my own appearance. I hadn't looked in a mirror in days, and what I saw shocked me. Hollow eyes, gray skin, hair escaping my bun in wild strands. I looked like a woman drowning, which, to be fair, I was. "You look pretty, Mama," Sarah lied kindly. We walked to church in a line, me in front, Sarah beside me, 10 orphans behind. I felt every eye in town tracking our progress. Heard the whispers that cut through the morning air sharper than the April wind. "She can't manage. Those poor children. Insanity." Inside the church, the judgment condensed into something I could taste. The pew cleared around us like we carried disease. Families who'd greeted me for years suddenly found the hymnal fascinating. Mrs. Patterson, who'd called my decisions sensible just weeks ago, shifted 3 rows forward. Reverend Holmes preached about pride, about biting off more than one can chew, about the sin of presumption. I felt 11 small bodies tense around me. They knew. Children always know when they're the problem. After the service, I tried to talk to Mrs. Chen at the mercantile. Needed credit for flour. Needed time to figure out payment. The farm would produce eventually, but eventually didn't feed children today. Mr. Chen came out from the back, looked at me with something like pity. "Can't extend credit anymore, Evelyn. Not to someone in such an unstable situation." "I'll pay. You know I'm good for it." "It's not about trust. It's about reality. You've taken on something impossible. I can't enable that." I left with my 3 remaining dollars and no flour. The children following me in silence, Sarah's hand in mine trembling slightly. We walked home through mud and whispers. Spring was coming, but it felt like winter. Like everything was frozen and gray and dying. That night, after I'd put the younger children to bed and thought the older ones were asleep, James appeared at the kitchen door. "Mrs. Evelyn, ma'am." He twisted his cap in his hands. Couldn't quite look at me. "We could leave, Emma and me. We're old enough to work, could find positions, send money back for the little ones. We don't want to ruin you." The words hit me like a blow. This child, this 12-year-old child, was offering to sacrifice himself to save me. James, look at me. He raised his eyes. They were dark and old and full of too much understanding. You are not a burden. None of you are burdens. You're my choice. I chose you on that train platform. I choose you now. Every day. I choose you. The town can judge all they want. They can whisper and pull away and call me crazy. But you 10 children are staying together in this house. That's not negotiable. His chin trembled. But the money. We'll figure it out. The town. Let them talk. But what if we... James. I put my hands on his shoulders, felt how thin he was under his shirt, how much responsibility he'd carried for too long. You don't have to fix this. You don't have to save me. You just have to be 12 years old. Can you do that? He stared at me. Then, for the first time since I'd met him, he cried. Silent tears running down his face while his body stayed rigid with the habit of not taking up space. I pulled him into a hug. He stood there stiff for a moment, then collapsed into me like a puppet with cut strings. I'm so tired, he whispered into my shoulder. I know, sweetheart. Me too. We stood there in my kitchen, 2 people drowning together, holding each other up. When he finally pulled away, Emma was standing in the doorway. She'd heard everything. Her face was wet too. We'll manage, she said quietly. We're good at managing. I nodded, because what else could I say? That night, lying in bed, I admitted something I'd been avoiding. This wasn't a practical decision anymore. Maybe it never had been. This was love. Impossible, reckless, terrifying love for 10 children who'd learned to expect nothing and give everything. The town could turn its back. My bank account could hit 0. The impossible could stay impossible. But I'd made a choice on that train platform that changed everything. I just had to figure out how to survive it. Samuel arrived on a Tuesday. I was in the garden with Mary attached to my skirt, trying to coax early lettuce from ground that felt as tired as I did. Looked up to see a large man standing at my gate, hat in hand. This is Bradford. Mr. I stopped, tried to remember how to be polite through exhaustion. Samuel, can I help you? He shifted his weight. Big man, probably 40, with a blacksmith's shoulders and careful eyes. Thought you might need some repairs. Fence is looking weak on the north side. I hadn't asked for help, hadn't asked for anything. The town had made it clear I was on my own. I can't pay you. Didn't ask for payment. Why? He looked at me directly, not with pity, not with judgment, just looked at me. Because you need help, and I can provide it. Simple mathematics. My own words thrown back at me. I almost smiled. I don't accept charity. Good thing I'm offering work, not charity. He moved toward the fence without waiting for permission. I'll start here. You've got your hands full. He glanced at Mary, who was peeking at him from behind my skirt. Hello there, little miss. Mary didn't respond. Hadn't spoken to anyone but Emma in weeks. I should have sent him away. Should have maintained my pride. But I was so tired. And the fence really did need mending. Over the next 2 weeks, Samuel appeared regularly. Fixed the fence, mended the barn roof, brought scraps of wood and made toys for the children. A top for the boys, a doll bed for the girls. He worked quietly, didn't ask questions, didn't offer advice I didn't ask for. The children started calling him Mr. Sam. James began following him around, learning how to properly swing a hammer. Emma relaxed slightly when he was there, like his presence meant one less thing she had to manage alone. I watched him with suspicion at first. What did he want? Men didn't help without wanting something. But he never asked for anything, never tried to tell me how to manage my impossible household, never treated me like a fragile thing about to break. even though we both knew I was barely held together. One evening, he stayed for dinner. I hadn't invited him, but Emma had set an extra place and I didn't have the energy to argue. 11 children and one blacksmith crowded around my table, passing bowls of thin soup and trying to make the bread stretch. Emma made this bread, I told him, because credit should go where it belonged. She's been keeping us fed. It's good bread, Samuel said seriously to Emma. Best I've had in months. Emma blushed, actual color in her face. When was the last time someone had praised her? After dinner, he helped James haul water while I washed dishes. Mary sat on the counter beside me, watching everything with her huge eyes. Why does Mr. Sam come here? She asked, shocking me because she so rarely spoke. To help us, I think. Why? I don't know, sweetheart, but I was starting to. I'd catch him looking at me when he thought I wasn't paying attention. Not the way men usually looked at women, assessing, wanting. He looked at me like he was trying to understand something, like I was a puzzle worth solving. And I'd find myself looking for him, setting an extra plate before he arrived, saving him the larger portion of meat, listening for his footsteps on the path. It felt dangerous, this softening, this letting someone witness my disaster without trying to fix it or judge it. One night, as he was leaving, he paused at the door. You're doing good work here, Evelyn. I'm barely surviving. Surviving is good work when you're doing it for 11 people. After he left, I stood at the window watching him walk away. Sarah came up beside me. Do you like Mr. Sam, Mama? He's been helpful. That's not what I asked. When had my daughter become so perceptive? I don't know yet. But I did know I liked him, liked his quiet competence, liked that he didn't need me to pretend to have everything under control, liked that he treated my children, all 11 of them, with respect. I liked him, and that was terrifying. Because liking someone meant needing someone, and I'd promised myself never to need anyone again. November came cold and mean. The children had been with me 8 months. 8 months of constant work, constant worry, constant calculations that never quite added up. We were down to $6, flour running low, winter staring at us like a wolf at the door. And then Mary got sick. It started with a cough, then the fever, then that horrible sound, the croup that made her breathing sound like tearing cloth. She was 3 years old and burning up, and I had no money for a doctor, and no idea what to do. I sat up with her all night, cool cloths on her forehead, prayers I hadn't prayed since Thomas died. Emma beside me with the quiet competence she'd learned too young. She'll be okay, Emma whispered. She's strong. But I kept hearing her labored breathing and thinking about all the ways children stopped breathing, all the ways I could fail, all the ways this impossible thing I'd chosen was going to kill us all. My mother died when I was 7. Fever took her in 3 days. I watched her slip away while my father worked and no one came to help. I held her hand while it got colder and colder, and I didn't understand that dead meant forever. Thomas died in his sleep. Heart just stopped. One moment he was there, warm beside me. The next, he was gone, and I was alone, and I thought I'd die from the silence. Now Mary was burning up in my arms, and I was spiraling into every loss I'd ever survived. Every person who'd left me alone. Every time I'd learned that needing people meant losing people. I've killed them, I whispered to Emma. I've killed them all with my arrogance. She's going to die, and they'll take you all away, and I've destroyed 10 lives trying to save them. Emma's hand found mine in the dark. You saved us, even if the worst happens, you saved us. You kept us together. But I couldn't hear her through my own terror. Dawn came gray and cold. Mary's fever broke just as the sun touched the window. She opened her eyes, looked at me, whispered, Mama. Not Emmy, Mama. I started crying and couldn't stop. Relief and exhaustion and 8 months of fear pouring out of me in ugly sobs. Emma held Mary while I fell apart on the floor. That's when I heard the knock, gentle, patient. Samuel had come early to work, found me there crying while Emma rocked Mary. He didn't come in, just sat down outside the door. Evelyn. She's okay, I managed. Mary's okay. Good. A pause. And you? I wanted to lie, to say I was fine, to maintain the pretense of strength, but I was so tired of pretending. I'm not okay. I can't, Samuel. I can't do this alone. I know. The town won't help. The money's gone. Winter's coming and I don't know how to feed them all and keep them warm and… I know. Then why are you here? Why do you keep coming back to watch me fail? Silence. Then his voice, quiet but steady. Because you're not failing, you're drowning. There's a difference. What difference? Failing means giving up. Drowning means you're still fighting. And maybe you don't have to fight alone. I pressed my hand against the door. He was right there, just on the other side, solid and steady, and offering something I was terrified to accept. I don't know how to not be alone, I whispered. Might be time to learn. We sat there until Mary fell asleep, until Emma carried her to bed, until the sun was fully up and the other children were stirring. Samuel was still there when I finally opened the door. Stay for breakfast? I asked. My voice sounded raw. I'd like that. It was the first time I'd asked him for anything. It felt like the bravest thing I'd done since taking 10 children off a train. The town meeting was scheduled for the first Tuesday in December. I heard about it from Mrs. Patterson, who appeared at my door with the kind of pity that curdles into cruelty. They're discussing your situation, Evelyn. The children's welfare. You should attend. The children's welfare. Like I was hurting them. Like keeping them together and fed and warm wasn't welfare enough. I'll be there, I said coldly. Samuel heard about it too, appeared that evening with his jaw set. I'm going with you. You don't have to. I'm going with you. I wanted to argue, wanted to maintain my pride, but I was so tired of fighting alone. The meeting room was packed. Every busybody in town had come to watch the spectacle. I walked in with Samuel beside me and 11 children following. Let them look. Let them judge. These were my children now. Mayor Pearson cleared his throat. We're here to discuss the Bradford situation. Mrs. Bradford has taken on 10 orphan children with limited resources and no husband. There's concern about the children's welfare. What kind of concern? I asked sharply. Well, he shuffled papers. Your financial situation is unstable. The house is inadequate. There's no male head of household. The children are fed, clothed, and loved, I interrupted. They attend church. They help with the farm. They're thriving. Barely fed, someone muttered. Living on top of each other. My face burned because it was true. We were barely making it. The house was too small, the money almost gone. Perhaps, the mayor continued gently, it would be better for the children to be placed separately, with families who can provide. No, Emma's voice cut through the room. She stood up, trembling but fierce. We stay together. That's why Mrs. Bradford took us, because no one else would keep us together. Young lady, sit down. She saved us. Emma's voice broke. All of you said no, said it was too much. Said take 1 or 2 and send the rest away. She's the only one who said yes to all of us. And now you want to punish her for it? Silence fell heavy and uncomfortable. Then Samuel stood. I've been working the Bradford farm for months now, watching. These children aren't suffering. They're learning. They're growing. They're loved. You all talk about Christian duty. Well, Evelyn Bradford is the only one in this room who actually practiced it. She saw 10 children who needed each other, and she made room. What did the rest of you do? His words hit like accusations, because they were. But I knew shaming people wouldn't help. They'd just resent me more. I needed to do something I'd never done before. I needed to ask for help. I stood, looked at all these faces that had watched me struggle. You're right. I can't do this alone. I thought I had to. Thought asking for help was weakness. Thought I had to prove I was strong enough to handle everything by myself. My voice caught. But I was wrong. These 10 children need more than one stubborn woman. They need a community. They need all of us. You're asking us to help? Mrs. Chen asked, surprised. Yes, I'm asking. I'm failing at doing this alone. But maybe together we could succeed. The room stayed silent. I'd exposed myself, admitted weakness, given them every reason to refuse. Then Farmer Wilson stood, old bachelor who'd never had children. I've got an extra cow. Been meaning to find a good home for her. Kids need milk. Mrs. Chen stood next. My daughters outgrew dresses faster than I can count. Got a whole trunk of clothes. Children shouldn't go cold. Mr. Chen followed his wife. Credit reinstated. For the children. One by one, they stood. Offers of help cascading like a river breaking through a dam. My vulnerability had given them permission to be generous. Samuel's hand found mine under the table. After the meeting, after everyone had left, he walked me home. The children ran ahead, excited about the promised cow and clothes and help. That was brave, he said quietly. That was desperate. Sometimes they're the same thing. He stopped at my gate. Evelyn, I want to ask you something. My heart started racing. All right. Let me help. Not just fixing fences. Let me partner with you. Join your mission. Merge my life with yours and these children. Marry me. I stared at him. That's not a rescue proposal. No, it's a partnership proposal. You don't need rescuing. You need someone to stand beside you while you do impossible things. I'd like to be that person. I thought about 5 years of carefully maintained independence, about my promise to never need anyone, about all the ways I'd kept myself small and safe. Then I thought about 11 children who'd taught me that hearts expand to hold what we choose to love. Yes, I said. Yes, I'll marry you. He smiled, actually smiled. When? Whenever you're ready to take on 11 children and one stubborn widow. I've been ready for months. Evelyn, just been waiting for you to let me. That night, lying in bed, I listened to 12 people breathing in my house, 13 once Samuel moved in. I'd started with room for one. Now I had room for everyone. The reunion happens every year now. All 11 children come home, although home is different now. Samuel built additions to the house, made it bigger, made it fit. It's 1901. 15 years since that train platform. I'm 46 years old and sitting on a porch that holds 12 rocking chairs because Samuel built it that way. Room for everyone, he said. Always room for everyone. Emma arrives first with her husband and 3 children. She's a teacher now, teaches at the school where she was once afraid to speak. She hugs me tight and whispers, "Thank you, Mama." She calls me Mama. They all do. Not Mrs. Bradford, not Ma'am. Mama. James comes next. He's a farmer like Samuel taught him to be. Has his own land now, his own family. But he still asks permission for things sometimes, and I still have to remind him he's allowed to take up space. The twins, Clara and Catherine, arrive together as always, both married, both with children, still finishing each other's sentences. Peter, Ruth, the younger twins, Michael and Margaret, all grown, all thriving, all here. And Mary, 21 now and engaged to a kind man who knows how to be patient with her silences. She's studying to be a nurse, wants to help people the way I helped her, she says. Sarah, my biological daughter, brings her newest child, adopted, like I knew she would be. You taught me that family is who you choose, Mama, she tells me every time. We gather around the table Samuel built to fit everyone. The food is abundant now. No more measuring flour to the cup. No more thin soup stretched to nothing. We have enough. More than enough. After dinner, we sit on the porch. 23 people in 12 chairs with children spilling onto the floor. Samuel's hand in mine. the sunset painting everything gold. "Do you regret it, Mama?" Mary asks. She asks me this every year. Taking all of us when you only had room for one. The town still tells the story about the crazy widow who saw 10 children and lost her mind. Some say it with admiration now. Some still think I was touched. I look at my family, at the teachers and farmers and nurses and parents, at the grandchildren playing in the yard, at the life that grew from one impossible choice. I tell them I had room for one because my heart was small. I say, 10 children didn't fit in the space I'd made, so they made me bigger. Taught me that hearts aren't like houses. They don't have walls and limits. They expand to hold whatever you choose to love. "That's beautiful, Mama," Emma says softly. "That's survival," I correct. I thought the story was about sacrifice, about giving up my comfortable life for 10 orphans, but I was wrong. The story was about expansion, about learning that love multiplies instead of dividing, that shared resources stretch further than hoarded ones, that community forms around radical acts of inclusion. Samuel squeezes my hand. He knows. He watched me transform from a woman who measured everything into a woman who understood that some things can't be measured. The children start their yearly tradition, sharing their favorite memories. James talks about the first time I called him by name instead of the boy. Emma remembers the night I admitted I was scared. Mary whispers about the morning she called me Mama and I cried. I listen to them turn our struggle into mythology, turn our barely surviving into a story of triumph. But I remember the truth too. The nights I cried on the kitchen floor, the moments I wanted to give up, the terror that never quite left until Samuel appeared and taught me that accepting help wasn't weakness. I remember being a widow who'd lost everything and measured her life in careful portions. And I remember 10 children stepping off a train and teaching me that the bravest thing I could do was make room. Not just in my house, in my heart. The sun sets. The children drift into the house, but I stay on the porch with Samuel, watching the last light fade. "Happy?" he asks. I think about the question, about happiness as something we build instead of something we find. "Yes," I say. "Yes, I'm happy." And I am, not because everything was easy, not because I did it perfectly, but because I chose love over logic. Because I saw 10 children who needed each other, and I made myself big enough to hold them all. They asked if I regretted taking 10 when I had room for one. But they asked the wrong question. I didn't take 10 children. 10 children took me. Took my small, careful, measured life and cracked it open. Taught me that hearts expand, that families are chosen, that love shared is love multiplied. I thought I was saving them. Turns out, they saved me. From a life too small to matter, from a heart too guarded to love, from the lie that survival means doing it alone. I learned better mathematics that day on the train platform, not the kind that measures flour and firewood, the kind that understands infinity, the kind that knows love isn't limited by what you have, only by what you're willing to give. I gave them room. They gave me everything. And that was the harvest worth making.